Dion win.
Hi everyone, welcome back, maybe for the very first time, and apologies for the longer than planned hiatus of the channel. It's been a very busy couple of months due to work, with film festivals. London, Toronto are both covered. There's going to be a lot of interesting reviews on the way for you, so apologies for that. And a massive thank you to anyone and everyone that has joined this channel. We're over 1,000 subscribers finally, and that's something to celebrate. I think it's a milestone that I never thought we would get because of the content of this channel, but the algorithm finally worked for me, so thank you so much, Diolch o galon. And I wanted to kick off this new era of the channel with a documentary review of a film that I found to be so important to kind of my heritage and my national identity as a very proud Cymro Cymraeg, and it is called The Welshman from filmmaker Lindsay Walker. And to give a little bit of context here, this is a documentary about the real life account of Owen Williams. Owen Williams is a very well respected politician and also an author in Wales and a big advocate for national independence within the kind of the Welsh battle, basically. And during the 1960s, a village called Capel Celyn in North Wales was going to be demolished, and then a reservoir was going to be built over it in order for water then to be given to Liverpool. And obviously, because we had no devolution rules or anything like this at this point, it was kind of happening, and Owen Williams and a group of people actually began Mudiad Amddiffyn Cymru, which is called Movement of the Defence of Wales, which kind of tried to prevent and also kind of elongate this kind of demolition of a town. You think about 70 people lost their homes, their identity, their heritage and everything in order for this to happen. And in many ways, a lot of people in Wales kind of went with this to kind of support them and to try and stop this from happening, to the extent where Owen Williams and a few other founding members actually planted bombs to kind of stop the actual deconstruction of the village. And there was no kind of terrorist intentions here to kill or damage or hurt anyone. It was just to stop and make sure that this process was going to take as long as possible. And there's a very fascinating short animated film called Llywelyn from a fantastic artist called Osian, which I shall leave a link up here for you to check out, because it will give you a bit more perspective about the history of it. But going back to the story of Owen Williams, after this event happened, he actually had to go on the run. He actually had to go to Ireland, and he was hiding. He had to use numerous identities. It's a very kind of catch me if you can story. But what Lindsay Walker's done here, she has kind of been able to sit down with Owen Williams, who's actually her father-in-law, and get the full story. And this is the crucial element for me. This is independently made, so there is no studio interference. There is no kind of restrictions to what he can say. He can say everything as he wants. And that is what I find to be so riveting and so inspiring about this documentary, because the way that she tackles this documentary is that it's very tightly framed on his face. There is so much understanding from Owen's kind of expression and the words that he uses for us to understand more of the reasoning of building Mudiad Amddiffyn Cymru, for kind of doing what he did, and the actual aftermath of what happened. And I found it to be such an engaging and very emotionally driven film because of it. And I do honestly think that you don't have to be Welsh to kind of empathise or understand his actions, because there is this humanistic element that this documentary has that is so engrossing and so vital for anyone to kind of infatuate themselves with. And I think there's a lot of nations across the world that are fighting independence from kind of the overlords that kind of deem over them, and I think it just opens up this kind of narrative and dialogue that some nations do not have. And I think if you see The Welshman for its kind of tale and kind of message, then it kind of will take you down this really expressionistic feeling of honesty and kind of understanding national identity. And I think it educates so many people also, because I think as an educator within film, I think sometimes you need to have these types of documentaries in order to teach the younger generation. For the last couple of years, I think there's been this big shift in kind of the national identity and independence within Wales. That's kind of been a resurgence because of Tryweryn. In the actual reservoir itself, there's a mural saying Cofiwch Tryweryn that has been there for years and years, and it was actually desecrated a couple of years ago. And what was so amazing to see from this was people went back to kind of recreate the mural, but also across the whole of Wales and in some parts of the world, the emblem of Cofiwch Tryweryn has kind of gone all across. And I think that sense of not to forget your past is so vital within the world now. And I think the way that kind of Lindsay goes in this film, she goes backwards, she does reconstructions of the events that happened, and I think it just gives it that nuance and that kind of refreshing take. Because the thing is, you could easily just sit there and listen to Owen talk for hours and hours, but I think it's really interesting the way that she's kind of gone backwards. She's looking at the Welsh landscape and just his kind of journey to kind of in a way to redemption, and for people to really understand who he was, I think. And I love that element of it. I think as cinema goes, it's beautiful to look at. And Lindsay's a very talented photographer. She works in television and film anyway, but I think this was kind of her time to show how much the story means to her and her family, and the importance of what Owen Williams did for Wales, I think, and what has kind of happened after that. This ripple effect is absolutely fascinating, and I think it's going to be one of these kind of documentaries that some people may not watch. That's totally fine. But I think if you want to see something that is that brutally honest and tells you a tale that you have to kind of listen to believe it. So that was my review for The Welshman. If you are intrigued to find out more, I'll leave a link to all their socials in the description at the bottom. Poblwch I Lindsay Enlli yn Barth y Cymru, Dysil, croeso bysod I chi, poblwch I chi am hynna. And I'll be back with some more reviews over the next week, so stay tuned for that. So take it easy, bye bye, diolch, ta-ta.